All right, let's do everybody's favorite customizations in SolidWorks. Throw open SolidWorks and just be cognizant of how long it takes to start. If your SolidWorks took a long time to start, go ahead into Tools, Add-ins, and expand this menu. This is a list of all the additional modules that add additional function to SolidWorks. For the basic SolidWorks user, none of these are necessary. Some of them are downright ridiculous, like SolidWorks Forum. I don't even know what Composer is, but until I found this menu, it loaded every single time I started SolidWorks. Uncheck every single box under Startup. If you find yourself needing something like, oh, hey, you know what? I need PhotoView 360 because I'm looking for a terrible rendering, you can just check that box here on the left. That will enable it for your current session. But I find it's better and faster to only select what you need as you need it, rather than making SolidWorks load everything every single time you start the program. Now it's time to make some changes to our default part file. Before we do that, I would just like you to keep in mind what's happening when you click New Part. So every time you open a new part, what's actually happening is SolidWorks is looking at the part template file. That lives somewhere on our hard drive, and it is basically the base image from which all subsequent part files are created. So any changes we make to the part template file will be reproduced every single time we open a new part. So say, for example, as I create a new part, I find the default background gradient in SolidWorks just horrific to look at. I can't be a designer in a dark cave and stare at this bright screen all the time. So if I come up here to the beach ball, just before you follow along, know that the changes I make right now are not going to be permanent. I just want to show you where the changes are. So when I go to the beach ball, I'll click over here to the View, Scene, Lights, and Camera, and I'll click Edit Scene. Here, I can change the image from, or the background from image to color, and I like that color. The only problem is, every single time I create a new part file, I would have to do that. Here's part number 2, and it's got that horrendous background. So what we're going to do, rather than have to make those changes every single time we start a new part, is we're going to click on this gear and open up System Options, and then we're going to click on File Locations. This is a list of all the places on our hard drive SolidWorks is searching for stuff. So here in this long list of the top, that every time SolidWorks is looking for referencing a file that exists outside of itself, this is where we can point it to those directions. So the first one is actually correct, document templates. That's where we want to be. Here, the first line ends in templates. There's a second line that ends in tutorials. We're going to ignore tutorials for now. Templates are what we want to change. We want to change the part template. So what we could do is open this long file path. Unfortunately, I can't click or copy this here. What I can do is if I hit Edit All, Document Templates 1, if I come over here to where it says New Path and just copy that. I'll highlight it with my mouse and I'll press Control-C to copy it. I'll hit Cancel, Cancel, and then I'll go to File, Open, and I'm going to paste, sneaky me, I'm going to paste that link, and it's going to take me right to where it's looking for my default part document. What I can do now is open that part. It'll open the same way that a SolidWorks part does, but you'll notice up here, instead of saying part 1 or part 2, it'll say part dot. Goofy name. Here, any changes I make, unlike the first time we sort of did them futilely, now they will be preserved every single time I start a new part file. So part dot, I'll just hit Control-S to save that. Alternatively, I could come to File, Save. Now I'll close that file and just go to File, New, Part. So I closed that template that we edited, and now I'm opening a new blank part file. Hey, look, there's my changes. Every single time I make a new part, it preserves my changes. Part 4, Part 3. Awesome. So let's talk about some of the other stuff we can do here in part dot. We already changed the background, and you can have some fun here. You can make your backgrounds like truly eye blistering if you're a real masochist. And just don't like yourself and the people around you. Oh yeah, rocket. Over here on the feature tree, not command manager, feature tree, I'm going to right click and show my 3 default planes. Now I find it incredibly helpful to have my default planes visible when I come into a new part. It helps me orient myself and choose which plane I'm going to start sketching on. The next change I'm going to make is up here in the gear that loads our system options, and I'm going to click over to the Document Properties tab. Now, these are the properties of all the document. These are all the properties of the document we're currently editing, but because we are editing the template, these will be propagated to all future files. When I click on Units, now maybe the ambitious decision that I made when I first loaded SolidWorks and gleefully replied, yeah, millimeters as my default units, isn't working out because what I'm really doing is just multiplying everything by 25.4 because I think in inches. I can change my units here and hit OK. Now what I've done is by changing the units of this document, I'll be changing the units of every part file I make that's based on it. One last change I'm going to make to our default template is to right-click a material of my choosing, and then hit Add Appearance to Part. Now back here in the beach ball, I can modify this material by hitting Edit Appearance, and I'll pick a color that I really like, maybe teal. Now that I've applied a material to the part, it might be tempting to make some geometry just to see it, but what I'm going to do is just save this and then close it. Reason being, because this is a template, if you make some geometry in here and forget that you're editing a template and save it by accident, that geometry will be present every time you start a new file. Ask me how I know. I once made an entire model and then proceeded to have to delete it from every subsequent file. I didn't quite realize what was going on. So now I'm on my top plane in a new part file. I'm going to sketch some wackadoo geometry. Wahoo. I'll extrude that. Zoop. Hey, look at that. My material has already been applied. Now, instead of a boring SolidWorks gray, I've got a spiffy teal on psychedelic California sunset in the background. So go to town with your interface customizations. You can always change them back. Just remember, you need to edit your part template. And if you're having a hard time remembering where exactly that is, you can find it here in Document Templates file locations. Go away. So now that I've returned my default part document back to my glorious boring gray background, we're going to talk about some other customizations we can make to the workspace that do not require you to edit the default part template. Back up here in the System Options gear, we can go to Colors. There are a few things we can change here if we so desire. The icons, for example, the default is the new blue and white. If you click on Classic, it gives you I think a green and yellow, goodness, color combination for your icons. And then the background here, this is the color of your SolidWorks window, like your menu options and whatnot. I do not like the white. So if I go to Colors, Background, I like medium. Find what works for you. That's how you change those toolbar colors. The next menu change is actually pretty functional, especially as we're making more complex geometry. So I'm just going to instantaneously model something. Beautiful. You'll take a note here that these surface lines are all solid. I've got an extrude on the bottom, an extrude on the top, and I've got this little lofted section in the middle. Now what I really want is for there to be smooth transitions here, but I can see I've got a sharp angle. Now, maybe because the geometry I'm making is so subtle, I don't notice that the transition here is creating a sharp edge. Instead, I would like SolidWorks to tell me when I have a tangent edge, a smooth edge, or a sharp edge. I can do that here, again, Settings gear, our friend for today, under Display, Part/Assembly Tangent Edge Display, and then change that from as visible to as phantom. That's very helpful because you can see here, these lines, which are tangent, have gone from being solid to being dashed. But my solid lines here indicate that I actually have a sharp edge. So that is a visual alert to me that I need to modify the properties of, in this case, my loft to include tangency. And now you can see by making it tangent, it looks very similar, but I know that if I were to render this physically, say with a 3D print or by creating it in some other method, I would have a smooth edge here as opposed to a little crease. It becomes very handy when you're getting into surfacing later on. Next, let's talk a little bit about customizing the specific tabs in our command manager, as well as some of the things that they contain. So by right-clicking the command manager in free space, oh hey, look, you can get it by clicking an icon too. What do I know? So click your command manager anywhere, apparently, and then click on Customize. Now, if we ignore this menu for a moment, you can see a bunch of tabs here. Black tabs mean that they will be displayed. Especially in this case with SolidWorks CAM, we don't have the add-in loaded. So even though it's black, I won't see it, but other tabs that are black will be visible most of the time. And then here are purple tabs. They're hidden. So if I were to right-click and hit Show on all of these, and then hit OK on my Customize menu, now I've got these tabs persisting in my workspace. I actually like to go the other way most of the time. I find that SolidWorks gives us too many tabs, and I like to strip this down to only the tabs that I use on a regular basis. For me, that's Features, Surfaces, Sketch, Reference Geometry, and Curves. Now, you may find that for example, curves, say you can't find curves, or maybe Reference Geometry is missing. It's not here purple, so that you can right-click it and hit Show to make it visible. Instead, you might have to come to the far right of your workspace and click on New Tab. Occasionally, SolidWorks will bury something helpful over here in the New Tab tab. So you can just left-click that, and it will give you new tabs, which you can select and add to your workspace. While we're here, I should point out that this is also the location for editing our commands, which would go on our command manager. So let's say on the Features tab, we wanted to add 5 super helpful, but for some reason hidden by default, features. Move face, move/copy bodies, combine, delete/keep body, and split. I can get all of these features, and indeed every single feature that SolidWorks is capable of producing, here in the Commands tab, and then I'll go to Features. Some of you may have heard me lament the fact that there is no way to search via text a given function. Instead, you have to know its super secret icon. So Google is your friend here, but in this case, move face. Oh, come on, brain, where is it hiding? Move face, right here. Move/copy bodies. Combine. Probably should have looked at this before I started recording. Oh, right above it, combine. Delete/keep body, over here on the left. And then split. I suggest you click and drag all of these up to your command manager. You find that you can put multiple instances of the same one in there. And you can just click and drag them into free space to get rid of them. If you find yourself on a regular basis going to insert features and then selecting some feature because it's not present on one of your command manager toolbars, go ahead and again, right-click the command manager, hit Customize, go to Commands, click on Features or any other category, and then just start adding stuff as you see fit based on your needs. Actually, I want those out of there. Hang on. Okay, they're gone. That also holds for Surfaces, Sketch, Reference Geometry, any other tab. You can add or subtract features there. That brings me to the last thing I'm going to talk about today, which again, we'll go to Customize. That's keyboard shortcuts. Now, the keyboard shortcuts you choose are going to be personal, and they're based on what you find yourself doing most frequently in SolidWorks. I find that most of my keyboard shortcuts are for toggling the visibility of stuff and for inserting sketch geometry. The way that the keyboard shortcut menu works is that it gives you, here you can search by text, it gives you the ability to type in something and then find like, hey, reference geometry plane, insert. So what that's telling me is that whatever shortcut I put here is going to insert a reference geometry plane. So this is a good way to find yourself, like maybe I'm sketching a lot of circles, so I'll type circle. Sketch entities, circle. Here you can see I've got that shortcutted already to the letter C. I prefer to keep most of my shortcuts on the left side of my keyboard because it allows me to use my non-dominant hand, the hand that's not on the mouse, to just be rapid firing commands. So what we're going to do now is give ourselves a new shortcut for a section view. Maybe we're using a lot of section views for a given model. And so here under display, or maybe modify, I will give myself a shortcut for the section view. Now both of these look like the same icon, but chances are they're going to do slightly different things. So we're going to shortcut the first one, section view. Let's give that Control-Alt-S, a string that I can type with just my left hand. I'll hit OK, and now in the workspace, I'll hit Control-Alt-S. Hey, that's great. I did that for free. Control-Alt-S, and it's back to normal. So I don't know what that other section view was, but if I were curious, or if my first keyboard shortcut wasn't giving me the desired result, I could always go back to keyboard section and then try that same keyboard shortcut out on the other option here. So when it comes time to delete something, if you click the shortcut and hit backspace, it will go away. But if you click the shortcut and hit delete, SolidWorks actually thinks you're trying to assign the delete key as a shortcut, and it's going to throw up this warning. So I find the best bet for deleting shortcuts is to just click the Remove Shortcuts button. Let's grab the whatever modify view section view is and hit Control-Alt-S again. We'll hit OK, come back into the workspace and see, hey, look, nothing's happening. Oops, I hit Control-S, sorry. Nothing's happening when I hit Control-Alt-S. If I already have a section view and then I hit Control-Alt-S, it looks like that second option just gave me the ability to modify an existing section. So that's less useful to me. The reason I picked the section view as an example is that there are a couple of things in here, like there's probably 3 different kinds of line in SolidWorks. So if you give something a shortcut and it's not working the way you want, go back into the Customize keyboard and then find that line option, or whichever thing is behaving aberrantly, and try a different option. This requires a little bit of experimentation, and I will post a text version of my keyboard shortcut settings. But keep in mind, again, that this is really personal and it's based on how you prefer to use SolidWorks. Now that you know how to do it, feel free to play around a bit and find what works for you. If there's anything else you'd like to see, you'll notice that there is a number 1 in the bottom right-hand corner. I know there's plenty of stuff to tweak in SolidWorks, so feel free to leave a comment with anything you'd like to see demoed in the next iteration. Cheers, everybody.